Hi guys, thought I'd put this video out for Patreons and YouTube members. I was testing the roll of FP4 film the other day with rod null, and I haven't shot FP4 for quite some time, so I've got quite a few rolls of it I bought from Ilford. So I thought to myself, I might as well do a couple of simple tests with it before I go out and shoot this film. And the way I tested it, I'll show you what I did, and I'll come out with some nice results. Let us know in the comments if any of you guys do the same sort of thing, but this is what I did to test this film. So I wanted to see how it would cope between shadows and highlights. So I went outside on a sunny day and I found a scene with shadows and highlights. And you can see these are my notes here. This is the general sort of stuff that I do. I don't put all this on the channel, but find ideal speed for FP4 and rod null by exposing the shadows and pulling the development on the rotational method. So that's using a rotation device. So I'm using a spot meter, which is this here, and I know that some of you guys might not have spot meters, but you can do the same thing with a phone app. They've got some spot meters on them. So I was using a spot meter, and I had to find the shadows reading for middle grey. I'll show you the final print that I came up with, so you get an idea of where I was and what I was doing. So that's the scene, just a simple scene in my garden. This was the shadow area, and I put a white towel, a white garden towel, over the chair to emulate highlights. So I did a spot reading here, and then I did a spot reading on the highlight area as well. And I was coming over just about 5.5 stops difference between the two. So I think this paper's about 5 stops of latitude. So I was a little bit out of me comfort control, if you like. There's the shadow area there that I spotted on. And that's the tests that I did there. I used the Nikon FM3A camera, 28mm lens, and I selected an aperture of f8, and I got my reading at 1/60th of a second. So then I took an extra 5 shots. So -3 stops, -2, -1, +1 stop, +2, +3. And obviously my 1/60th is going to give me a reading for middle grey, so I know that I need to pull that down 1 or 2 stops. So I knew I was going to be in the ballpark around about 1/25th or 2/50th of a second. I then went ahead and did the same test indoors, and I chose another scene indoors, which is this one here, exactly what you're seeing on the camera. I just put a camera there and a piece of parchment paper, and I wanted to try and get the detail on the outside, but the differences between the spot meter here and outside were way off the scale, about 8 stops. So I knew that I was going to have some trouble in the darkroom making a print, as you can see there. So this time my metered value was f5.6 at 1/8 of a second. So again, -1, -2, -3. There's the reading for the meter. +1, +2, +3. And I knew I'd be around about 15th or 30th of a second, which is +1 or +2 stops away from the metered value. Of course, that's going to give me middle grey. I don't want middle grey, it's too light, so I need to stop down a little bit, and that's what I did there. So I then went in the darkroom and made a contact strip of or contact sheet, I should say, and that's a test in there for a contact strip. I need to find out how long it takes for the paper to go near enough black, looking at the sprocket holes and the base part of the negative. This is the FP4, and you can see in seconds I've written down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and after 5 seconds it didn't get any darker. So 5 seconds was my time for my test strip. And then the contact print I made at 5 seconds, and there it is there. So if I've done everything right on the contact print, done everything right on the metering, I should find a value somewhere on here that's going to give me nice tones for making a print. And just as I suspected, 1/25th and 2/50th looked the best. 2/50th looked a little tiny bit dark than I'd like, but 1/25th was a bit lighter than I'd like. So maybe my ideal exposure would have been in between those two, maybe half a stop from 1/25th. But anyway, out of these two, I'm still going to get a nice print. So I decided to choose this one here because it had the more density in the highlight area, which was the cloth, the white towel that I put on. So I went off and did some tests there. And instead of doing tests across the whole neg, I just tested for the highlight area. If I can get the highlight area right, because I don't want that being over bright, I don't want that being blown out. If I can get that right, the highlight area, everything else will follow. And it did, and I'll show you how I did it. So I went off and tried under the enlarger, small test strip there, you can see 7 seconds, and I hit it just for 2 seconds with a contrast 5, only 2 seconds, and then realised I was too dark, definitely on the shadow area here, but the highlights are working out well. I then tried a split grade at 5 seconds, 2.5, 2.5, 2.5 grade 5, 2.5 grade 0, and you can see that's just blown out the highlights completely. So then I went off and put a contrast 0 in under the enlarger just to pull the contrast down a little tiny bit, and my test results came back here, which is 7 seconds. I can just get some detail in the highlight area there, which looks nice. So I went off and did some tests at 7 seconds, and I came out with these results. So I did my first print, you can see there, that's with a 2.5 grade filter, and that was at 5 seconds. I thought I'd try a 2.5 grade filter. At 5 seconds, you can see it's blown out the towel. You can't see much detail at the bottom of the towel there, and the shadow areas are too dark. So I then put the contrast 0 filter back in, and did it for 7 seconds. And you can see I've got nice detail in the towel, and also my shadow areas are there as well, if you can see that. But I guess the main point of showing you this video is just doing these tests, sacrificing half a roll of FP4. So now I know that next time when I go out and shoot this FP4, if I want to do anything creative, you know, not street photography because I won't have time to do any spot metering, etc. Or maybe I will, I don't know. But if I go out and shoot this FP4, I've written down all my times for it. I've written down my developing times as well, exactly what I did in the development. So when I go out and shoot this FP4, all I need to do is do exactly what I did today. Meter for the shadows, come down a couple of stops to say 1/250th in this example, and then take my pictures, develop exactly the same way, and they should come out really nice to print. And I came indoors after that and did exactly the same thing again with camera sitting on this area you can see here, which is next to a window light. 1/8 of a second, like we said, was my metered time, but the highlights were too blown out, so obviously I had to come down a couple of stops. So I looked at these 1/30th of a second, so I took that negative under the enlarger. You can see on the contact print I've got detail in the background. So I took that negative under the enlarger and I did grade 0 at 7 seconds. I come out with that one, and then grade 0 at 10 seconds, which looks nicer. I just started to get some detail in here, but I had to burn the top part here for another 5 seconds. This is all done doing some tests, and that's when I came out with that final print. So that was the final print there. So I gave that 10 seconds, so I gave that 7 seconds, sorry, and then burned this area here, just this part, for another 5 seconds. And that one's come out okay, look at that. So yeah, so by writing my stuff down and making some tests, I now know that I can go out comfortably and shoot this FP4, come back developing rod, know exactly what I did before, and should get some nice negatives that will easily print in the darkroom. Much better doing this, sacrificing half a roll, than coming back with underexposed or overexposed FP4, or even worse, underdeveloped or overdeveloped. And that's the camera that I use for these tests, and that's the light meter that I use for these tests. Anyway guys, hope you like that video. I hope you found it interesting. Let us know in the comments if you do anything similar to test film. There are many ways of testing film, but this is one of the ways that I go ahead with, and it always seems to serve me well. Cheers.